All right, what's going on? I know on Twitter, at BU_scouting, I told you guys that I was going to talk about a few topics via video, because it's very hard to put, descriptive um, breakdowns or analysis all in words, on Twitter. So here's the video. So three topics I wanted to talk about today was the selections of Jahmyr Gibbs to the Lions, even Bijan Robinson to some degree, and then other first round selections. And then I wanted to talk about injury and the influx in soft tissue injuries that we've had over the past few seasons. And then to close, I wanted to let you guys know why I haven't joined the media side of draft analysis after being in the game for over a decade plus, and just give you guys a little bit of my story to give you guys background of kind of my journey. But first and foremost, right, Jahmyr Gibbs, um, one of the biggest surprises of the 2023 first round, right? And we got to think about this from the perspective of the GM, the team, and the historical context of players like Jahmyr Gibbs, right? You have people from different sides having their opinion on the positional value, even going so far as to say, why were the Eagles so willing to take DeAndre Swift if, they're a smart team? Why were they willing to take I guess, your scraps? And, really this thought process stemmed from something that Brad Holmes had said recently. Like, his process is something, whereas they have all the information to make the decisions, and people who have mock drafts kind of are so invested in whether something is a right pick based on historical context of positional value. And he's saying basically, we're the smart ones, you guys don't have all the information, and you guys are sour because it didn't go a way that you wanted to, paraphrasing. And then people are combating with, well, the Eagles are a smart team and they just, you know, took a player that is no longer, a part of your plans in DeAndre Swift, but they're a pretty smart team and they found value. In fact, only gave up a seventh rounder for it. And then people, it just comes from two different lines of thinking to me, maybe even three if you look at it. For me, Jahmyr Gibbs was my top rated running back in this year's class. And one of the reasons was because he has next level explosiveness. He has the ability to catch out of the backfield. He did it in one of the most difficult conferences, week in and week out. Whereas Bijan Robinson, he wasn't in the conference that Jahmyr Gibbs was in, and he's not as explosive. I mean, the numbers show it, the tape show it. And what I mean by that, yes, being 200 plus pounds, 210 plus pounds in running a 4.4, the metrics are there. But when you put on the tape, those aren't the same metrics per se, right? I think it's more so 1A, 1B, with Gibbs being 1A and Robinson being 1B. I think projecting Bijan Robinson at the next level, he'd be better as a downhill runner, which he fit, Atlanta scheme perfectly, being a downhill runner and using that big frame to really get those extra yards, where he didn't do that so much with Texas. Texas was so much spread, and it showed his skill set because he can still catch out the backfield and things like that and do things in space. But I really think at the next level, he'll be a downhill runner. Whereas with Gibbs, I think he can translate as a spread option running back, which means a lot of those veer concepts, outside zone, Texas routes, lining up in the slot. Same with Bijan, but it's just the fact that Jahmyr is the better athlete. He projects. There's so many different versions of Jahmyr in this league, whether it be have started with Chris Johnson or Jamal Charles types, and then you have Christian McCaffrey. All those guys I was high on. Well, at least Chris Johnson and um, Christian McCaffrey recently, and then Alvin Kamara as well. So you have all these examples of Jahmyr Gibbs types and what they can do for an offense, and then you have Bijan Robinson, where people are, basically saying he's Marshall Falk and he's LaDainian Tomlinson. I mean, those are hard praises. I didn't see that type of player on film. I saw closer to an Ezekiel Elliott type of athlete, still good, but not on the level of LaDainian Tomlinson. I think that's where when you scout to assess, you're assessing it with whatever concepts that you have, but you're not properly um I guess the word is you're not properly projecting. You're assessing the talent, but you're not projecting it to NFL talent size, NFL talent speed, to where those cuts that he's making in the conference that he's in, they're not going to be the same type of cuts that he's going to get away with in the NFL. So the highlights that you see Bijan Robinson doing in the conference that he's in college is not going to translate. Will you see some of those? Yes, because not every athlete is the same. So I think people kind of were waiting for this type of running back. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like looking throughout this process, Bijan was a player that I couldn't wait to watch because I see snippets here and there. He's so electrifying, right? So entertaining. But when I watched every down on down, he's just not that generational type of guy like you're trying to make it seem. Like if you consider Ezekiel Elliott generational, or guys that can be a perennial 1,000-yard rushers, that's significant. But Hall of Fame, that's a lot to say from that tape. In fact, I had a handful of guys that ended up being rated higher than Bijan over the past 15 years. If you date it back to Chris Johnson, and then as recent as guys like Jonathan Taylor rated higher. Jonathan Taylor was rated higher for me than Bijan Robinson. Travis Etienne was very close. These are prospects that I think we just get so happy with. But back to the point, I got off on a little tangent there, but the fact of the matter with Jahmyr Gibbs is less about you thinking about positional value and just thinking about the player and what they can do for that said team. And the people that disagree are people who believe that that here's their rankings: Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? When in fact the NFL and a lot of teams have it a lot closer for a lot of the reasons that I have it a lot closer. So if that's the case, why aren't there that many detractors to Atlanta taking Bijan at 8? Right? If running back is the positional value and that's decreasing, why isn't really people talking about, oh, Atlanta took a running back at 8, right? But everybody's all in because they believe it's such a big gap. So the foundation of this whole argument is somebody's evaluation is off. Therefore, what Brad Holmes, the GM of the Lions, is talking about might have some credence, right? Because if he's talking about we have the information and your mock drafts didn't go the way that you thought they were going to go, right? And you're having an issue with it, but the league, there's reports that the league even had Jahmyr Gibbs. Some handful of teams had Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan. That's not crazy to think. That's not like, because when you think about, just think about, there's very rarely there's a new type of athlete that comes into the league. We've recycled so much. Jahmyr Gibbs is in the mold of a very successful running back that changes offenses. He's in that archetype. Alvin Kamara, Chris Johnson, Christian McCaffrey. He's in that mold. Jamal Charles. Bijan Robinson, like in y'all minds, he may be LaDainian Tomlinson. But if you're seeing through a lens of where you really watched tape after tape, snap after snap, rep after rep, I think he's closer to a Ezekiel Elliott type of back, which isn't a bad back, than he is to Marshall Faulk, right? And if you have that evaluation, if you're properly assessing it, then it's not that egregious to have Gibbs higher, right? It's like, but you guys probably have hyped him up to such a degree to where it's kind of difficult to bring you guys back to earth. So Brad Holmes taking that type of back to take his offense to a next level, it's not that crazy. And it's crazy how people are like slandering that move. In fact, if I'm the Titans and let's say Skoronski is gone, if Smith and Jigba is gone, for them, in that regime, if Levis is gone, Gibbs is a legitimate argument. In fact, for me, he was probably 2 or 3. If Smith and Jigba was gone or whatever, I wanted to add weapons, but Gibbs was very close for me to be taken because of that electrifying ability. So I think people don't understand. They look at it as so black and white, and it's almost like they detract the human or the football element aspect of it. Like, what type of athlete that for that like these type of athletes do to offenses. You know what I mean? And they look at it like, oh, he's just another DeAndre Swift. No, he's not. He's not. It's two totally different engines that run these players. There's two totally different types of speeds. It's not the same. But then I want to let's just segue. Let's keep this rolling. So in terms of, I wanted to talk about projecting body types and projecting these soft tissue injuries, and the only thing that we can really um give it any type of credence to is what has happened to athletes' bodies over the last few years. If soft injuries are higher, what has happened in the last few years that could possibly increase this? Right? What are the things that could have? What are things? What are our diets? Our diets changing? Is the food changing? Is our environment changing? And I'm gonna leave this to you guys to figure out what has happened. Put on your thinking caps. What has happened in the last few years in which athletes have done to their bodies that has changed something to where now there's an uptick in injuries, an uptick in certain situations happening to athletes, right? And I'm gonna leave that up to you guys to use your thinking and to use your discernment and your problem solving skills, right? Because nothing has really changed from a perspective of maybe more games in the NFL, more games are being played, but you see a lot more injuries in the NBA as well. They've decreased games, but kind of revved up the frequency of games. But they also have, what is it called? Rest management, whatever it is. So that's up to you guys. But as for me, we talk about body types. One of the things I said is, when you look at athletes, you look for proportion. I look at proportion. If no 5'9", 180 athlete is the same, no 6'2", 220 athlete is the same. They're not identical. They carry weight differently in different parts of their body. Their body fat percentage is different. Their muscle mass percentage is different. So with that being said, some athletes may be a 6'2", 180, and they're top heavy or something like that. And these type of body types is to me, it's almost common sense. Like, if you had a toothpick and you put a marshmallow on it, that is going to make it tip over or be a little bit heavier on top, therefore making its lower half weaker. So when you have athletes who are top heavy, it's almost common sense that they're putting more strain on their lower extremities. So over the past few over it's been a decade now, I've noticed that with certain athletes, if you're top heavy, the likelihood of you getting an injury on your lower body that's significant is higher, just based off of, I guess, what do you call that, kinesthetics. um and just guys that play very physical with reckless abandon, those guys are often always injury prone, who don't have good awareness, spatial awareness, don't understand, flying bodies that's going across. Guys that don't play hard, that's just standing around the pile. Those type of players get hurt a little bit more frequently than guys that are built very proportionally. Their upper half matches their top half. They have, I call it hinges. Every hinge is covered by muscle. This is covered. This is covered. Their knees are well covered with their quads. Their ankles aren't thin. They're built. They have calves. It's just, to me, common knowledge, but for others, they just look at players, they don't really go into the details. But for me, it's like common knowledge, right? It's like you're looking at a build and something has to compromise. If this is weak here, something is going to have to compensate for you being heavy here or thin here. But those are the things that I look at to project injury. Now, it's not 100% infallible. And I try to get away from projecting people's injuries or injuries of the past and what can occur. I try to get away from that and try to really look at the athlete. But if I know something to be true over my empirical data over 15 years, 10 years solid of evaluating, then that's something that I always try to keep in mind. But to close, because I wanted to come on here and talk about three things to just get these off because I said I was going to talk about them. Was why haven't I joined the media space of draft evaluation? So first of all, I've been in college programs helping with whether it be practice cut ups and tapes, whether it be in the equipment room, whether it be in the recruitment offices. I've coached from little league up to high school type of athletes. I've been in football, right? I've had courses where I'm talking to former scouts and former GMs on a daily basis. I've graduated from GM and scouting courses. I have scouts numbers. I have all. In fact, if you were to look at, if I wanted to put my credentials out there compared to some of the people that that may have gotten your attention or have your attention currently, my resume would definitely probably overshadow them. But the reason why I haven't gotten to media, which I have had offers, and I did do a little writing gig, um, not a little one. I was appreciative of this guy reaching out for downtown sports, as which is no longer a thing. And then other people have also wanted me to write and do stuff for them as well. But I have my own website. I have the ability to create whatever narratives and stories on my own time when I want to do that. But this year has been busy in my other profession. But one of the reasons I haven't done it is because 2019 was probably a year where I was more open to doing that, 2019 and 2020. And when I did it, this is one reason, when I did it personally, too often you find yourself trying to create things to, basically make content over things that won't even be important 2 hours from now, 24 hours from now, right? So you're constantly creating content. And when you do that, yeah, possibly your writing skills will get better, but your credibility will inevitably go down. Like in terms of literally being accurate, it will go down because then you start to chase stories. Then you try to do clickbait, and I've seen it all too often. It's inescapable. You when you're in the content business, you will literally find stories that won't even matter in 24 hours, and you could be wrong on it, but it doesn't matter because the next day is the next day. And I don't like that, right? I like to be accountable. I like to be accurate. I like to put in time. I'd rather take a month doing one thing to excellence than doing 45 things in a month and only hitting on 10, right? That's actually solid. And that's just the nature of the beast. I'm not a media person where I'm in these catty debates, controversial debates about things that won't even matter in a couple hours, that won't even matter in, a couple days, right? Everything I try to do is pretty, substantial. And I think when you look at these guys and you look at, like, for the draft, for example, you have these guys that's in the media who say, I like him, I like this player. And then years later, months later, they were wrong. But guess what? It's media. Next day, let's keep it rolling. And I'm just not with that. You kind of get into a fan mentality, because in order to make content for a fan, you have to be one yourself. It's inevitable. You have to tailor whatever you create to the fan. Therefore, you become a fan. Your mindset is a fan. So essentially, these people are just glorified fans who learned how to make podcasts and type up reports or type up articles. And that's no disrespect to them. You're just a fan who learned how to type and got media. What I don't like about it is once you attach yourself to these media giants or media labels, then all of a sudden you get credibility. When in fact, I could be on I could be a, Teron Davenport. I could be a, Cameron Wolf. I could be a Jordan Reed. I could be a, Ben Arthur. I could be that, but I don't want to be that because I enjoy my creativity, my freedom. Um, I prefer not to have to adapt to the environment or code switch and do all that stuff just to say the same things that I'm going to say anyway. Yes, the titles will give you certain type of credibility because you're attached to a big name. I get it. I get that. But for me personally, it's just not something that gives me fulfillment. I want to be a part of the chase to win a championship. Now, you could say that I could do media and get noticed by a team and then that could expedite the situation. That could be on the table, right? But I'm more so into developing myself. And by the way, that's not shots against any of the people that I mentioned before. Those people definitely paved the way for people like me for sure, because if they're not there, then there's other people trying to break the mold. But what I'm saying is that is not like so foreign to me. Like, and what's funny to me is I could post that I got an internship with the Titans. And think about this, literally, just think about this. I could post that I got an internship with the Titans and I could get hundreds of congratulations, retweets, and whatever, right? I can do that, but I can also tweet 3 times, 4 times in a row with no interaction. So why has what I've done been so credible to the fact that if I said I got an internship, you believe it, but not good enough to be promoted on every time I tweet, right? When I did join that media company, Downtown Sports, everybody congratulated me, right? Because it's almost like they know that I'm competent. They know that I do what I do, but it's not validated unless it's attached to a giant, a team or a media giant. Because if I wasn't good at what I do, if I said that I got an internship, or if I said that I was writing for a company, then people would be like, oh, you're lying. But nobody would say that, right? Because they believe that I have the talent to do it. So it's kind of like a disconnect. You think I'm good enough to do it, to be an intern or to be a writer, but you don't promote the work. So it's kind of like people are essentially attention and status. You know what? Can I say horse? You're attention and status junkies, right? That's what you are, and that's kind of what it is. It's going to be that until the realization is, oh, he's this, or he's with this team, or he's with what. But at the end of the day, I'm just a person that you know had to deal with a lot of real life things, but I've also been prepping myself for the opportunity to be in the league. I've simulated the process as close as you could be. Like, I'm not gonna say anything that to me, in my opinion, that's not out of. I believe that over the course of especially the past 4 years, I've put myself in real life situations to make decisions. I put myself in real life situations to sharpen my craft more so than a lot of people that are in the league, because they simply either one, don't have the time, or just haven't simulated that process enough. That's why when people that's been in the league get put in positions, it's still foreign to them because they haven't simulated it. I've simulated to be a scout slash GM as close as I possibly can, for years, right? Without actually being on a team, I've simulated that process over and over, the decision making, the this, the that, what happens here, what happens that. And then I'm refining that process. So I just feel like people are like, you say that you've been doing something for so long, but where is the result? Well, it's coming, right? Not everything, like my story will be told when it's time to be told, right? Like, I haven't been able to do this consecutively like I've wanted to because life has happened. But when I do have the time, I'm all in. And that's just kind of how it goes. If given the situation, that will free up a lot of time because then I could be 100% dedicated to whatever situation or opportunity that comes to me. But that's not the case. So I haven't been in media because um, I want to do my own media. So that's another thing. My website will be updated and I will start to be more consistent with that to where I can create the type of content that I want to create. And if people like it, they do. If they don't, whatever. And I have to look at it from a situation of just improving my writing rather than trying to grow a brand, right? Where, I just want to improve, right? I'm not trying to get a subscription from you. I'm not trying to take money from you. But I do expect the value and the effort to be reciprocated at some point down the road. But as of now, it's all about just sharpening, my sword and getting better at my craft slowly but surely. But that will answer any questions as far as people asking, okay, why hasn't he become a media member or anything like that? Like I could have went to the Senior Bowl several times under the media credentials of Barnes University, but like I said, life, right? Being an adult, having a growing family and different obligations and things like that. So it's not foreign and it's not so far, and I'm not so far removed from being on college teams and stuff like that to where, if I was to get put in a situation tomorrow, an opportunity, it would not be foreign to me whatsoever. I'm a football guy through and through. Now, is there room for improvement? The schematics, the day-to-day grind and intel, absolutely there's room for improvement there. But I'm open for it. I'm receptive. I'm coachable. So that's just answering questions that I know that a lot of people are wondering. But that my time will come, and God has given me the opportunity to see who deserves to go with me when that time comes. And that's what this time is. You get appointed, you get disappointed, and then you get anointed, and then you get disappointed, and then you get appointed to whatever you're supposed to be doing in this life. So right now, I know that I've been anointed. Now you could consider this a disappointment phase. Now it's time for me to get appointed to wherever God wants me to go and use the talents that he gave me for his glory.